Bonjour and welcome to this week's French lesson with me, Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France. So today's video is going to be all about the verb aller. And why aller? It's such a simple verb, but there are so many things that you can do with it. In fact, it's one of my 4 favorite verbs in French, the 4 verbs that I like to call power verbs. So let's get right to it, and at the end of this short video, you'll see just how much you can do just by having learned the verb aller, not just in the present tense, but also in the passé composé and in the imperfect. So here we go. What is a power verb? What am I talking about when I say power verb? Well, you'll see as I begin this series that there are certain verbs that if you just learn how to conjugate them, and especially in the 3 tenses I mentioned, the present tense, the passé composé, and the imparfait, you can create all kinds of really meaningful sentences in French just by adding an infinitive to the present passé composé or imperfect conjugation of that verb. So you'll see what I mean. You'll see how simple it is when I start giving you some examples. The verb aller, what does it mean? So the verb aller is probably one of the first that you have learned. You've probably already learned the present tense conjugation of the verb aller. So let's go through it. It's je vais, tu vas, il, elle, on va, nous allons, vous allez, ils vont, elles vont. Now watch what you can do with that. That just means, for example, je vais, I go, I do go, I am going. Remember, in French it means all 3 of those things. But what if you wanted to say, I am going to eat at the restaurant? All you have to do is say je vais, remember that means I am going, and then what's the verb to eat? It's manger. So you just add that on to the present tense conjugation. Je vais manger au restaurant. Je vais manger au restaurant. Now, what if you want to put that into the past? If you use the passé composé, do you know how to put aller in the passé composé? Even if you don't know much about the passé composé just yet, you can understand it after having watched this video because I'm going to go through the je, tu, il, nous, vous, and il forms of this verb with examples. But you can always check out the link that I've put at the bottom of this video if you need some help in learning how to form the passé composé. Okay, so aller happens to be one of the verbs in the passé composé that uses être as an auxiliary or as a helping verb. So if you want to say, I went, then you say, je suis allé. Je suis allé. If you're feminine, then you have to add an et, your past participle, aller. All right? So that's what I'm doing here in the example, since I'm Jennifer, right? So if I want to say, I went to eat at the restaurant, all I have to say is, je suis allé manger au restaurant. You see how simple that is? Je suis allé manger au restaurant. And one more thing, it's the imparfait. Now remember, the imparfait is the other way of talking in the past in French, but it's not to talk about something that happened. It's to talk about something that you were doing, something that you used to do. It adds an element of description. So, for example, if I wanted to say, I was going to eat at the restaurant, how often do we say that? Someone comes up to you and they say, oh, what are you doing? Well, I was going to eat at the restaurant, but I decided just to stay at home. All right, how would you do that? I was going is j'allais. So this is the formation of the imperfect, and if you need a little help on that, you can also click on this video that I've put down at the bottom of the screen, all right? But even if you haven't formally studied the imperfect, now I'm telling you what it means. In order to form the imperfect of lots of different verbs, you'll have to study the formation of the imperfect. But if you just want to know how to do it with the verb aller, that's fine. That's fine. You can master the verb aller, and that'll be awesome. So I was going to eat at the restaurant. J'allais manger au restaurant. J'allais manger au restaurant. Now, what do? Just to double your knowledge, double the amount of things you know how to say in French. What if you wanted to make any of those negative? All right, the first one was je vais manger au restaurant. If you want to make it negative, let's just use a simple ne pas. Remember, you have to put ne pas around the verb. So, je ne vais pas manger au restaurant. I am not going to eat at the restaurant. Or, I did not go to eat at the restaurant. Je ne suis pas allé manger au restaurant. So notice in the passé composé, or remember, in the passé composé, your negation, whatever it is, in this case ne pas, goes around the helping verb, and then the past participle comes after that. So, je ne suis pas allé manger au restaurant. Très bien. Now, what about I was not going to eat at the restaurant? But it smelled so good, so I stopped and I decided to, right? Je n'allais pas manger au restaurant. So in the imperfect, just like in the present tense, your ne and your pas go right around the verb. D'accord, très bien. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if anything was not clear. And so let's move on to tu, and let's give you an example with tu. So the present tense form of tu, the verb aller, is tu vas, V-A-S. Now remember that tu vas means you go, you do go, and you are going. So it's the you are going part that we're using in this power verb sense. So if we want to say, you are going to sing at the concert. Tu vas chanter au concert. And if we make it negative, tu ne vas pas chanter au concert. You're not going to sing at the concert. All right? Put it into the passé composé. How would you do that? Tu n'es pas allé chanter au concert. Oh, I made it negative, didn't I? So let's do it again negative, and then I'll make it affirmative for you. Tu n'es pas allé chanter au concert. You did not go to sing at the concert. So remember, passé composé is telling an action, all right? It's not descriptive. So we have this idea of you not going to sing at the concert. Let's make it affirmative. Tu es allé chanter au concert. Tu es allé chanter au concert. You went to sing at the concert. Again, using the verb être as helping verb, because aller, if you've ever heard of Dr. and Mrs. P. Vandertramp, that's the list of 17 verbs that you have to memorize when you're not a native speaker to tell you when to use être as a helping verb as opposed to avoir. All right, one more example using tu. Tu allais chanter au concert. Tu allais chanter au concert. What does it mean? You were going to sing at the concert. So notice the last three letters of tu allais look just like j'allais, A-I-S. Right now, we're just worried about the verb aller. But you'll see that as you get more and more into the imperfect, that there are imperfect endings that you have to learn. So AIS for je, AIS for tu, and we'll get on to the il, elle, on form right away. But let's make this one negative. Tu n'allais pas chanter au concert. You were not going to sing at the concert. D'accord. Pardon. So here we go. How about the subject il? Il, all right? So what we want to use is il va. Il va means he goes, he does go, he is going. So if we say il va finir ses devoirs, we just put an infinitive, finir, après va. So il va finir ses devoirs. Negative. Il ne va pas finir ses devoirs. Got it? You can do the same with elle. Elle va finir ses devoirs. Or on va finir nos devoirs. All right. If we want to put that in the passé composé, il n'est pas allé finir ses devoirs. I don't know, I always have a tendency to do the negative first. That's something I need to work on. All right, so il n'est pas allé finir ses devoirs. He did not go to finish his homework. I know, because I saw him and he was walking down the street with his friends. So let's make it affirmative. Il est allé finir ses devoirs. C'est beaucoup plus sage. It's much more well behaved, right? So, il est allé finir ses devoirs. He went to finish his homework. And if he was going to finish his homework, il allait finir ses devoirs. You notice that AIT, that's the third person singular ending for the imperfect. So, il allait finir ses devoirs. He was going to finish his homework. Il n'allait pas finir ses devoirs. He was not going to finish his homework. Let's move on to nous. So, nous allons étudier le français. Nous allons, that's the present tense, nous allons étudier le français. We are going to study French. Or to make it negative, nous n'allons pas étudier le français. We are not going to study French. If we put it in the passé composé, watch this. Nous sommes allés étudier le français. Still using the verb être as helping verb. And this time we have to add an S to the past participle aller. Pourquoi? Because nous is always plural. So when you're in the passé composé with nous and you're using être, you absolutely have to put an S. All right? So nous sommes allés étudier le français. We went to study French. Nous ne sommes pas allés étudier le français. We did not go to study French. And how about we were going to study French? Nous allions étudier le français. So, allions, that's the imperfect. Take a look at the imperfect ending for the new form, I-O-N-S. Nous allions étudier le français. Nous n'allions pas étudier le français. We were not going to study French. Okay, moving on. Vous, the vous form. Vous allez voyager. Vous allez, you are going, you go, you do go. Vous allez voyager en France. You are going to travel en France, to France. Vous n'allez pas voyager en France. You are not going to travel to France. Now, passé composé, vous êtes allé voyager en France. You went to travel to France. Vous n'êtes pas allé voyager en France. You did not go to travel to France. And finally, you were going to travel in France or to France. Vous alliez, that's the imperfect ending for the vous form, I-E-Z. Vous alliez voyager en France. You were going to travel to France. Vous n'alliez pas voyager en France. You were not going to travel to France. And finally, this brings us to the third person plural. So I'm going to choose to use Elle, that's the Elle plural with an S on the end of it, so you can see what happens in the passé composé when you're using a plural feminine subject in the passé composé with a verb that uses être as helping verb, like the verb aller. All right, so here's your example. Elles vont travailler. So elles vont is your regular present tense. Elles vont. They go, they do go, they are going. Elles vont travailler. They are going to work. Notice that I used voyager in the last example, and now I'm using travailler, doing it on purpose, because travailler means to work, it doesn't mean to travel, and a lot of people get those confused. So remember that voyager is to travel. Donc, elles vont travailler. They are going to work. Elles ne vont pas travailler. They are not going to work. Now, how about they went to work? Elles sont allées travailler. Elles sont allées travailler. So notice on aller, I've had to add an E and an S to that past participle because my subject, elle, is feminine and it's plural. Donc, elles sont allées travailler. Elles ne sont pas allées travailler. And then finally, this is your last example for this awesome power verb, aller. We're going to say they were going to work. They were going to work. Elles allaient travailler. Elles allaient travailler. They were going to work. Or elles n'allaient pas travailler. They were not going to work. Look at the imperfect ending, A-I-E-N-T, and you'll see that those endings are always the same for the imperfect. Remember to look at the bottom of the screen and click on those lessons that I've made in the past if you need some help with the passé composé or with the imparfait. And you can look forward to a whole series of 4 of my favorite power verbs. And so the next one is going to be, let me look, it's going to be the verb vouloir, which means to want to. It'll open up so many doors for you once you know how to use these verbs in the present, passé composé, and imparfait. Now, if you're interested in taking Skype lessons with me, then you just need to click on the link below and visit me at the website for Love Learning Languages. And again, if you have any comments, any questions, whatever, please let me know because I love to read them. À très bientôt. Au revoir et merci.